Come on in, welcome to Idled Out, where we talk all things Survivor. My name is Luke, and today we're taking a crash course in Edgic. If you spend much time at all online talking about Survivor, eventually you're going to run into Edgic, a statistical analysis of who is going to win the latest season of Survivor based on prior editing trends. This color-coded, acronym-filled Excel spreadsheet is called an Edgic chart, and the super hardcore edit reading fans use charts like these to try and determine who the winner of the season is before they get to the merge. By quantifying and mapping out every player's screen time, the content of their confessionals, and more. Using a three-pointed analytical approach to watching television, Edgicers take a scalpel to every episode and take an unbiased look at what was shown and what wasn't shown. Now, Edgic isn't for everyone, and there's nothing wrong with engaging with Survivor at any level, from analyzing the edit down to the most minute details to the most casual of viewings. But today, I thought it would be fun to help demystify Edgic for those of you who are curious about it, but find these spreadsheets and acronyms a little intimidating or confusing. So let's check out the basics of Edgic, what all those letters and numbers mean, and how the edit tea leaf readers have used Edgic to great effect over the years, and how they've been bamboozled in the past.
I'm completely bamboozled right now.
At its core, Edgic is based on three different factors: rating, tone, and visibility, which will ultimately make up the final Edgic rating of a player in any given episode. Edgicers give each player one of these ratings each episode, the community votes on a consensus, and then at the end of the season, each player is given a final Edgic rating for the season as a whole. Let's look at rating first. This is the meat and potatoes of Edgic, the character's personality as shown on the show. And there are 5 ratings: INV, UTR, MOR, CP, and OTT. INV is invisible. This is a person who you are truly meant to forget is even in the episode. They receive no confessionals and no tribal council questions from Jeff. They aren't shown talking at camp in any significant way, and are barely mentioned at all by the other players. For all intents and purposes, this person is irrelevant to the storyline being told this episode, and at times it appears that the editors and producers are actively and intentionally suppressing this person's visibility. Getting an invisible rating in any episode is often, but not always, a death knell for one's winner chances. They usually don't sandbag the winner this hard in the edit. The quintessential example of an invisible rating would be Purple Kelly in most episodes of Survivor Nicaragua. She is not shown talking even in camp life scenes, no confessionals, she's barely mentioned by anyone, even as a number. She's purple. Our next rating is UTR, Under the Radar. This is the next step up from invisible. This is a player who might receive a confessional, maybe a tribal council question, but they're not going to be the player everyone's talking about at the water cooler the next morning, and their game nor character is developed in a meaningful way. They're inconsequential to the story being told this episode. This might sound like a bad rating for your winner chances, but almost every winner has had at least one under-the-radar episode throughout their season. However, getting several under-the-radar episodes, especially in a row, is usually not a good sign, but getting one after an episode or series of episodes when you're a big focal point is called a cooldown in the Edgic community, and is actually usually good for your winner chances because it means that the editors and producers are letting your screen time breathe a little bit so that you're not completely overexposed. The difficult question about under-the-radar ratings is this person genuinely just not being utilized, or are they being intentionally hidden so that their win isn't obvious? Natalie Tenorelli in Survivor Redemption Island is a classic under-the-radar character. She rarely got any character development, and was only in the storyline as much as her relationship to more important characters like Rob or Philip demanded for any given episode. We're aware of her presence most of the time, but it's not significant. The next rating is MOR, Middle of the Road. This is probably the hardest rating to wrap one's head around because it's a player who's just kinda present in the episode. They're there and you're meant to remember them. They're involved with the storyline of the episode, but not a major mover and shaker. They're not as absent as invisible or under the radar, but we really don't get inside their head and understand their thinking, nor are they probably a major personality. They're just ambiently there. This rating is like Survivor Purgatory between being a minor and major character of any given episode. We probably know who a middle-of-the-road player is aligned with this episode, but they're more of a supporting character or possibly just a generic narrator. Winners often receive middle-of-the-road ratings, but mixed in with the CP rating, I'll explain in a little bit. A recent example of a middle-of-the-road character would be Chanel Howell in Survivor 42. Outside of the third episode where we did get to hear her strategy, she wasn't really developed much as a character, and although we were often reminded of her existence, we were rarely given insight into her game or personality beyond a surface-level understanding of her alliances. The next rating is CP. Whoa, calm down, Mike Scoopin. This CP means complex personality. Complex personalities are usually our main characters. They are, well, complex. We understand the motivations behind their game decisions, they tell us the why and how of their game. We see their strengths and weaknesses, and we have a fully realized picture of who they are and where they fit in with the tribe. You know this character. It's Kim Spradlin in Survivor One World, Yul Kwon in Survivor Cook Islands, Stephen Fishback in Survivor Tocantins, Omer Zahir in Survivor 42. Winners usually get many CP episodes because they want us to understand the winner's motivations, and the non-winning complex personalities are usually the other main characters of the season and the players that quite frequently return for a second or third chance. Our final rating is Over the Top, OTT. These are the larger-than-life heroes and villains who we don't get that much game insight from. They're simplified, a caricature. They're typically, but not always, a major presence in the episode, but they lean towards the one-dimensional, cartoonishly heroic or cartoonishly villainous. Examples of OTT heroes would be Rupert Boneham in a lot of Survivor Pearl Islands, Stephanie LaGrossa towards the tail end of Survivor Palau, Jane Bright in Survivor Nicaragua. On the other side of the coin, OTT villains would be Philip Shepard in Survivor Redemption Island, Drew Christie in Survivor San Juan del Sur, or Jatia Taylor in Survivor Cagayan. It's worth noting that an OTT character can change course over the season and go from over the top to a more well-rounded CP or MOR rating later. However, OTT characters are often the most memorable players of the season, the people we love to love and love to hate. Okay, we've got the hardest part down. Let's move on to the next section, tone. This is whether the player was portrayed positively or negatively in the episode. You've got to put your personal feelings aside here and try to look at the edit as objectively as possible. What is the show trying to make the audience feel? Tone can come from anywhere, whether that's the edit itself going out of its way to either highlight a player's good or bad qualities, often accompanied with heroic or dodo music, or other players in the game being shown talking about you in a way that we, the audience, are supposed to take at face value. There are 7 different tone ratings, but don't worry, they're easy. The first is literally just nothing, no rating. The edit is just portraying this person as is, with no particular positivity or negativity assigned. The first rating is
Jay or Jeff?
What? No, Jeff, shut up. The first rating is P for positive. These are the players they want us to like, and they go out of their way to portray them well, not only by showing heroic or likable actions, but often showing positive language about them from other players as well. Winners are, unsurprisingly, often tinted positively, because generally Survivor wants us to like our winner. Opposite of P is N. Negative. There are a lot of facets to an N rating. A player can be shown as mean, aloof, annoying, out of touch, dumb. It all falls under the N rating. Winners are rarely portrayed negatively, although sometimes they have no choice. You can only sanitize someone's personality so much in the edit bay. In between P and N is M, mixed. This person is shown both positively and negatively in a single episode. The editor's trying to actively give us mixed feelings on this character. Again, this really needs to be underlined in the episode to earn an M rating.
The most infamous of all survivors.
And honestly, all I think about is my little baby Piper okay. You know, like that's all that's going through my head.
Additionally, there are two rarely used ratings to denote extreme heroism or extreme villainy, PP and NN. It's not enough to be run-of-the-mill, heroic, or villainous here. They have to be really laying things on thick. Now, I'm gonna need you to be mature on this next sentence, but PP is hardly ever seen. You practically have to get medevaced to get this rating, and even then, results not guaranteed. The most clear-cut PP that comes to mind for me is Jonathan Penner getting medically evacuated in Survivor Micronesia. Not only is he getting pulled from the game for an injury, but the other players are moved to tears by this loss. Penner himself is talking about how much fight he had left, all while it's juxtaposed against Chet wanting to quit over having a piece of coral stuck in his foot. The music is soaring, even Jeff is upset. It's absurdly heroic. The audience is meant to be moved to tears at the loss of this great man in the game. NN is seen a bit more frequently, but still very rarely used. This is as negative as you can possibly get on this show. Think Nayanka Mixon during her quit episode in Survivor Nicaragua, when she announces her quit, then hilariously refuses to give up her spot on a reward she just won. Or Colton Cumby during one of his many racist temper tantrums in Survivor One World. You're meant to be disgusted by these people beyond the game even. The last piece of the puzzle is visibility. This is a rather simplistic rating of 1 to 5 based on how much screen time a player received in the episode, based on confessionals, camp discussions, tribal council questions, and even other players talking about them. There's no magic formula to calculating visibility and story importance, but it's pretty easy to figure out. 1 is either invisible or barely there, 5 is an inescapable screen presence, and 2, 3, and 4 are the gradients in between. Put everything together in order from rating to tone to visibility, and you have an Edgic rating. Over the course of the episodes, ratings and the contents of ratings are used to determine winner candidates based on the content of their edit, and players are generally eliminated each episode from winner contention. I'll do a full video on what your boilerplate winner edit looks like someday, or you could just go watch Survivor Island of the Idols, but generally a healthy mix of CP and MOR ratings, neutral or P-tone, and regular visibility of 3 to 5 is the sweet spot. So we know the basics of assigning Edgic ratings, but how useful is it really? Edgic, after all, is a tool we use to find out what the edit is telling us. But are there ever any misses? The bad news for educators is that the major Edgic communities are right more often than not, and usually have the winner pinpointed or narrowed down to a select few players by the merge. After all, Edgic was reverse engineered from the way Survivor tells its stories. So while editors and story producers aren't exactly sitting down and saying, let's give this person a CPN 3 this episode, they are using the principles Edgic was founded on when editing, because Edgic was built on Survivor's storytelling principles in the first place. Even some winners that were major surprises to more casual audiences, like Michelle, for example, were sussed out by Edgic early as a winner or a major contender just by following the edit breadcrumbs. Of course, Edgic can be wrong, too. Sometimes Survivor throws complete curveballs and edits a season very unconventionally, especially lately. Or sometimes the Edgic community just straight up gets it wrong, even when the signs were there all along. So to wrap things up, let's take a look at a winner that Edgic easily anticipated, and the most notorious Edgic miss in Survivor history. When I think of obvious Edgic winners, I think of Tommy Sheehan in Survivor Island of the Idols. There have been plenty of winners that ticked all the Edgic boxes, but Tommy's edit was, for me, the most textbook winner's edit of all time. The first clue that Tommy was walking away with the win was that he was constantly shown when he didn't need to be, despite his not super electrifying personality. He was also regularly shown relating Survivor to his job. This is another thing Edgicers watch out for, because confessional producers or Jeff literally ask everyone to relate Survivor to their job somehow, but this footage is often only shown for the winner. It was around the 50th time that I heard Teaching Time with Tommy that I knew he had this in the bag. I think even for super casual audiences, the writing of Tommy's win was very much on the wall. At every turn, we understood Tommy's game motivations, his alliances, his stance within the pecking order of his tribe, and even his opinion on the Applebee's Shark Bowl.
We're in the Fiji Islands, and that's just the island drink you want.
Let's see.
Looking at his season-long edit chart, these are just the most bog-standard Edgic ratings a winner could ever have. Even more fun than Tommy's electrifying edit is looking at a season that Edgic got wrong. Edgic's biggest fail ever was undoubtedly Survivor Gabon. The Edgic community at large has gotten things wrong before, but in the annals of great American disasters, there's the Titanic, the Hindenburg, and Edgic during Survivor Gabon. Up until his elimination, Marcus was the Edgic contender. No one else even came close. Marcus's edit ticked every Edgic box to a T. Contemporary Edgicers were ready to turn the season off because there'd never been a winner's edit more obvious than this one. Marcus was consistently shown to be a mastermind. Every decision he made or alliance he formed was backed up hard by the edit. He was frequently shown when he didn't need to be. He got to relate Survivor to his job. There were literally no problems with Marcus's edit, and everyone else had been written off as a contender. That is, until the final 10, when he was voted out in what I contend is one of the most shocking eliminations ever. Edgic truly was in shambles. The meltdown in the Edgic community was a thing to behold. The cope from Edgic truthers, mixed in with the excitement from Edgicers who like being surprised by the edit, combined with the Edgic haters gloating in the most obnoxious way possible, made the Survivor Sucks Gabon Edgic thread a truly historic all-timer. After the dust had settled, Kenny became the new frontrunner, but literally every other player is thrown out as a winner contender in a post-Marcus world, except Bob. So let's take a look at how it all fits together. This is something you'll get a handle on if you choose to do Edgic more, but here I'll give a few common ratings and players who receive those ratings in a particular episode, so you can see how all the puzzle pieces connect. CPN 5, for example, is a fairly common rating. This would be Boston Rob in Redemption Island in the episode where he institutes the buddy system. We understand his strategy in and out and why he's doing it, so there's the CP. But it's presented as a smart but undeniably controlling and mean-spirited strategy. There's the N. And he's on screen all episode and gets 8 confessionals, so there's the 5. OTTP4 is another common rating you'll see a lot. This is a heroic character that we're rooting for, but whose portrayal is a bit one note. If they're struggling, we are empathizing with them. If they're succeeding, we are rooting them on. Think of Ethan in his All-Stars Boot episode. He's the last winner standing, and we're rooting him on to succeed and stay in the game, despite all the obstacles ahead of him. But we don't really get inside his head or his thoughts beyond his desire to keep fighting. We're meant to root for him, and then meant to be sad when he's gone. Finally, as an example of a standard UTR1 or UTR2 rating, take a look at Joe in the first few episodes of Tocantins. I know you're like, who? But that's kind of the point. Characters can be under the radar and then become consistently important later, but regular under the radar rankings, especially early on, are a sign that this is a situational side character. In the first 4 episodes of Tocantins, we don't learn much about Joe, just his surface level alliances and personality traits, but he's never full-on invisible. Still, he's under-edited in favor of developing the personalities on Jalapao that will be more important in the game in the long term, as well as the bigger personalities that are here for the short term. Common for regular under-the-radar edits, he gets a situational spike in visibility in episodes 5 and 6, when he's suddenly relevant to the storyline, because his allies Spencer and Sydney respectively are in danger. Then he leaves the game in episode 7. So there we have it, a brief primer on Edgic and how a small contingent of super hardcore Survivor fans use past editing techniques to anticipate future winners. It's worth noting that in the new era of Survivor, it seems like they're moving further and further away from the more conventional winners edits of years past and experimenting with how they tell their stories more often, which I think is a pretty exciting development and makes the show more fun to watch if you're following those edit breadcrumbs. Thank you, editors. That's very CPP4 of you. Got nothing else for ya. Don't be OTTN5. Like and subscribe, and I'll get you more Survivor content just like this. Until next time, don't get idled out.